So whenever I was born in 1978. I was born with a rare heart condition called transposition of the greater arteries. What that means is that when I was born, my greater arteries in my heart were reversed around backwards. So the deoxygenated blood flowed through my body instead of the oxygenated blood. And at that time, back in the 70s, we were referred to as the blue babies. And so prior to my generation, everyone that was born with this condition, they just died. They sent them home and said, there's nothing that we can do. But Dr. Mustard invented my surgery. And so around that time, they started doing the mustard repair and the seeding repair. And so that has kept me alive. But there are complications. I had a surgery to repair the congenital heart defect, but there are a lot of complications that come with it. So, for example, I live my life in congestive heart failure. I have to take 7 medications to keep me alive every day. And there are complications that come with my heart condition. I go to the hospital a lot. I was just in the hospital about 2 weeks ago, stayed there for 3 days because I was in atrial flutter, which means my heart rate was 250, and they had to shock my heart to get my heart back in rhythm. So yeah, and now I'm fine for a little while. In addition to that, my father was very abusive to me and my mom and my sisters. And he was mainly verbally and physically abusive, and he would hit us, and he tried to kill my mom, and she grabbed the blade and he pulled the blade out of her hand, sliced her hand open. Whenever I was about 15, he began sexually abusing me. And yeah, so, and my father was a type of man that was like, he was a redneck, you know, so he was not having a gay son. So a lot of his abuse started because he was trying to teach me how to be more manly. And out of that started teaching me how to masturbate, because he said that men masturbate every day. That happened at 12, but at 15 was whenever he actually actually, like, you know, laid in the bed with me naked and was spooning me and attempting to have sex with me. So whenever I moved to Dallas, I was about 19, and at that time I moved here in the pursuit of an acting career, to get my foot in the doors and for acting. And so I started going to a school here, and then my mom was paying my rent and paying my bills, but she stopped. And so at that time I had started thinking about, I wanted to transition because I felt like on the inside I was born and I should have been a woman in the wrong body. So I saw an ad in the back of the Observer magazine, and they were hiring for nude models. And so I said, hey, I can do that. I can be a nude model, which they were hiring for female nude models. But instead, I went to the model call. And there I was, about 18, 20, somewhere around there, years old, and got caught up in the prostitution game. Started out on Harry Hines, which is where most of the prostitutes start in Dallas, working in the modeling studios. And I went from there. They hooked me up with a pimp, the girls that were in there. And I had a pimp for a while. And he paid, I didn't know I was getting a pimp. He paid my cell phone bill and my apartment and all this stuff. And I just thought he was trying to be nice, because that's what he said. Like, oh, I just want to help you out. I want to help you get started. Then all the stuff about where's my money started. He was married and had kids, and she knew about me. And she seemed to think it was no big deal. So then I continued doing that. I lived as a woman for 7 years. Most of the 7 years, I was a prostitute. One of the times, I went to go see a client, and they told the client he could take a backpack in the room. He took the backpack in the room. I had no idea he was bringing a backpack. And I was held at gunpoint. He had the gun to my head. I was sitting on the bed, and I just said, look, like, I really thought that day I was gonna die. Like, because I had heard all these stories about prostitutes getting killed and all this, but I never thought that would happen to me. And I got out that day, and I never went back. But what people don't understand is that, a lot of people like to say, oh, well, why are people prostitutes? Because, there's other ways. You can't judge people, because sometimes some people don't feel like they have another way. For example, a transgendered individual. It's really hard for a transsexual to get a job. When you go in for an interview, they might be like, oh, we're gonna hire you. But when they see your ID and they say it says M instead of female, and you look like a female, you're automatically not getting that job. And so that's why so many transsexuals turn to prostitution. But you can only get so many chances. And I feel like life speaks to us and gives us chances. And the last time whenever I was laying in the hospital bed, I had pneumonia in my lung all the way up. They had to drain my lung, all the fluid out. I had just come back from living in Florida, because I went down there, was prostituting down there, like prostituting and doing drag shows, and was doing that for some time. And then I got sick, and I had never really been sick like that, like sick to where I'm going to die. And went to the hospital, they said, you need to move back home. Moved back home, went to the hospital here. I was extremely sick. And while I was laying in the hospital bed, I said, if I survive this, I will never go back to prostituting in my old ways, because I was really out of control. But a lot of the reasons I was so out of control was because of the abuse I endured as a child. I didn't think in my mind it was like, it was okay. And I really had no morals. I needed a better life. And so, go to church. And so I started going to church, and I got saved, but I got involved with different church groups, and I started going to ex-gay ministry. And so I was going to this church and this ministry for 5 years, and they both said, like, oh, gay people are going to go to hell, and God has no place in heaven for gay people. So I went through this for 5 years, suppressing my sexuality and suppressing who I was. And I went from being a drag queen and a transsexual to literally overnight cutting my hair off and being a boy. And because I was like, I don't want to go to hell. And so then in 2018 has been really good for me, because where I might have been in the hospital and have had issues with my health, at the same time, spiritually and emotionally, I've been so much better, because I've been able to say, this is me, this is who I am. If you like it, good. If you don't, oh well, it's your problem. But I've really came into myself, and comedy was something I've always wanted to do and something I always wanted to get involved in, but I never had the confidence. And this year I decided I'm going to. And whenever I got involved in comedy, it's been so good. And like, comedy for me, like, laughter is so healing. The community has really accepted me. It's the first time that I've ever seen a group of heterosexual, mainly people, be so loving and accepting to gay people and to the LGBT community. And so with me, they're like, oh my God, like, oh, so you're gay, who cares? Like, no big deal. During this troubled time in my life, where I was going through all the things I was going through, I really started putting my faith in a higher power and putting my trust in a higher power. And I really, where I never had a father that loved me here on earth, I knew I have a father, and I know I have a father in heaven that loves me. And so really, that is very comforting for me to know that there is a God and that there is a Father in heaven who loves me and who accepts me just the way I am. With who cares about what men of this world say about me? That does not matter. He loves me and he cares for me. And whenever I need something, whenever I need things in life, or I need someone to talk to, I turn to God and I pray to God, and he has never let me down, ever. My name is Kevin, and I'm a life survivor.